Joe Biden has dropped out of the presidential race in what is the most insane political event of my lifetime. What was your initial reaction? Do you disagree with me?
No, I absolutely agree with you.
Okay.
I find it funny because we've been talking about this since the debate, right? We've talked about it every time we filmed.
Yes.
The last 3 weeks, we've done like a temperature check. What are the percentages? What are the odds Biden drops out? And what's funny is both of us had our percentages decreasing. I think I started at like 45% chance, and the next week I was down to 40. Last week I was down to 35.
And I think it was a fair assessment by us to think that as time went on, the pressure would kind of dissipate. The longer Biden stayed in the race, the more likely he would be to stay in for the long haul.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Now, I always knew that if Biden was going to drop out, there was no way that he could make us think that he was even thinking about it.
Yes.
Right? So like it had to be like a President Nixon thing. The day before he resigns, he says, "I'm not going anywhere." You know, it would have to be like that. And that's exactly what we got.
I agree, but there were things along the way that, like, he sent a letter to Democratic congressmen, like, that he went out of his way. He didn't have to do. It's not like he was pressed and asked about it, but he specifically went out there and took the initiative to put these things out to say that he's going to stay in the race. That is what gave me a lot of confidence that he wouldn't drop.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Near the end, it was interesting because the more often he was tweeting, he would actually put Kamala Harris's name in those tweets very frequently. Sometimes he would put her name first. And I'm looking there with my conspiracy brain. I'm like, oh man, does that mean it's coming? You know?
Maybe you were right.
Maybe. But there we go. He finally dropped out. I think all of the Democratic Party had a big sigh of relief. Nancy Pelosi was working really hard behind the scenes to get him out. Obama apparently is working very hard to get him out. Chuck Schumer, less hands-on, but still wanting him out. But there wasn't any one thing that made me think that the floor just fell out beneath him.
Yeah, and yet when the announcement came, it was like that's exactly what had happened.
I was getting brunch with my friend, who was totally apolitical.
Yeah.
We weren't talking politics, which is very rare for me, for like 2.5 hours. It was like the biggest break of politics I've had in the last 4 years of my life. And then she gets out of the car and I go on my phone and I get 8 notifications. One from him, one from my dad, one from my other friend. It's, you know, just a whole bunch of people being like, I can't believe it happened.
Yeah.
And I call my friend and I'm just screaming into the phone like, holy crap, it happened finally.
Yeah.
The Democrats have a chance now. Because I gave up all hope for Biden near the end. I gave up all hope.
It was so disheartening.
Yeah, and it was clear from the polls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Biden campaign it looked dead. The New York Times Siena poll had him down 9 amongst registered voters, down 6 among likely voters. It seemed like there was even no way to claw back. He totally lost the trust of the Democratic base, the African American community, the young people in this country. All of them have almost basically lost faith in Biden.
Totally.
And it showed itself in the polling.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, you say everyone lost faith, and yet he would still win 45% of the vote.
Yeah.
If we went to November.
Right.
But that's not what matters.
Right. It's about the margins.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't hitting the margins that he needed to become a viable candidate. And listen, I have to give him credit for seeing that.
Eventually.
So
he's a hero now.
Now he's a hero.
Good for him.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Now I just hope that his legacy remains intact, right? I mean, like if the Trump administration comes in, he will repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. He will take away a lot of those subsidies. The tax plans that Biden had will be gone.
Yep.
So all these different things will be, his legacy will be damaged by a future Trump administration if that happens. Now, what I think is interesting is Trump's response to this. Trump was furious when Biden dropped out. Trump and the Republicans were absolutely furious because they're like, oh no, we just set up our entire campaign to be centered around going after the old senile guy. And now all of a sudden, we don't know who we're going to go after yet because we didn't have a presumptive nominee at this point. But they're like, this is ridiculous. You can't just switch out the nominee.
But then even after that, what I read is that they were upset that they were ready to be able to attack the Democrats after a few weeks of discord and them doing some infighting.
Sure.
And instead of that, what he got was rapid coalescence around Kamala Harris.
Rapid unity.
Like extremely quick. Even the few people. So I was one of. I guess this is a topic we should talk about.
Yeah.
Should it have been a coronation? Should it have been a competition? We talked about this before because obviously we've been talking about this topic. I was on the side of competition. That time is over. There's no chance for that anymore. We've seen the coronation of Kamala. I go back and forth because I do understand how much negativity would come out if there was a mini campaign, a mini primary that happened amongst Democratic hopefuls.
Sure.
And that would really weaken anyone who did get the nomination very close to the election.
Yeah.
It just gives more opportunities for failure, more things for the Trump campaign to seize on.
Yeah.
And so I do see that. However, one of the attacks that Trump and other Republicans have now levied against Democrats is that they're undemocratic. They're using this as their one opportunity to say Trump isn't the undemocratic one, it's the Democrats.
Yes, I have that on my notes.
Yeah.
Threat to democracy.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any merit to that?
No, I think it's extremely silly. And I do think that almost everyone can see that. Like, I can't imagine an independent voter like seeing the messaging from the Trump side and actually thinking, oh yeah, the Democrats actually are really undemocratic.
No.
I can't imagine that resonating with anyone. But I do understand the strength that could come out on the positive side if it's like our nominee completely earned this through a hard-fought battle.
And Kamala tried to frame it as that she's going to earn it.
Yeah.
Right? She comes out and she says, I am going to earn this. I'm going to do the work. And apparently she did do a lot of work. She called up like a lot of the different state delegations.
Yeah.
And she talked to like hundreds of individual Democratic delegates going to the Democratic convention.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, she totally did do the work. To me, it makes me think of a really rich person. They're set up for success in life.
Sure.
If you're born rich, right, you're set up for success. She was the vice president, so she was set up for success. Mm-hmm. Anyone who answered her call, a delegate who was asking for her support, they probably expected it and they were ready to give it. Maybe they weren't like completely on board, but they were at least ready. Like they expected that it might happen.
Yeah.
Any other Democrat, any Democratic governor or any higher up in the party that might want to go for the nomination also knew they're like the poor people. Right? When they're born, they know that Kamala is there and is the presumptive nominee.
Yeah.
So I do think she earned it, but from a position of privilege.
Right. The real question was should Biden have endorsed Kamala? Because he didn't endorse Kamala in his like farewell statement, basically, but like he did go on Twitter like a couple hours later and then endorse Kamala.
Yes, and when he first didn't endorse Kamala, I was really excited.
Right.
I thought that meant a lot, and then there were holdouts like the two Democratic leaders in Congress who didn't endorse her immediately, and I was thinking we had a chance at a competition. Why do you think? Okay, my read on Biden endorsing her after initially putting out this statement is he thought his mention of her in the statement was enough for people to understand that he was endorsing her.
Yeah.
And as soon as he saw the feedback, he was like, "Oh, I need to make
it super clear."
Is that what you thought too?
That was honestly, I don't know. I think that was my first reaction after sitting on it for a little bit. I thought maybe he wanted to separate his farewell address to the country from a political endorsement.
Okay.
Right? Like that's going to be that's going to be a document people are going to read for a long time.
Okay.
Right? That's how I think about this.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, when is the last time, well, we know this. The last time a president didn't run for re-election was 1968 with Lyndon Johnson. And that video is an extremely important video of him coming out and saying that he's not running for re-election.
Okay.
So I think it is an important historic document. And I don't know if he wanted to get hype, like partisan political inside of the statement itself, maybe. But no,
Sure.
I think you're right. There was some merit to him saying like, oh, wait a second. I said these great things about Kamala. I thought that was enough.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. Are you... Yeah.
Sorry, no, I want you to ask.
Are you happy with Kamala? Because she came out of the gate swinging. She gave a speech in Milwaukee, in the suburbs of Milwaukee 2 days ago. How do you feel about her? Are you impressed?
So this is one of my questions. Why does Harris, the candidate, work now?
Yeah.
I'd say I'm like a 6.5 to 7 out of 10 on her right now. I'm not thrilled.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of that speech. A lot of it still felt kind of hollow, like a lot of cliches,
Sure.
a lot of things I expect her to say. Honestly, one line of attack that I've heard a lot of people advocating for is she's a prosecutor, he's a felon.
Yeah.
Keep hitting that. I don't like that. I really don't like that. I think it's almost it's laughably it's obvious, and it isn't going to help with any independence, and anyone who's part of the base I don't think needs to be pandered to any more than they're going to turn out just to stop Trump.
Yeah.
So I don't like that. She feels a little scripted.
Oh, yeah. She's super scripted right now.
But the fact that she is in contrast to Joe Biden is more important than anything she is doing or saying.
Absolutely. I'm watching the Kamala speech in Milwaukee, right? I'm watching it, and I'm not worried about her saying something ridiculous and making it a clip.
Exactly.
Right? I'm not worried about that. I'm just listening to her.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I love the campaign messaging that she has, because she's centering the entire campaign around freedom. That's her slogan, freedom. And she's using a new definition of freedom, the Joseph Stiglitz definition of freedom. She's using the freedom of sending your kid to a good school. She's using the freedom of getting access to healthcare when you need it.
Positive freedom.
She's using positive freedom. And that is the message. That's what you have to drive home. That's the vision that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
A new type of freedom. And that's what I really like. I like that. I feel like a vision is being described here.
Okay, you feel aligned to that.
I feel aligned to that.
Okay, I do think the vision articulation part is extremely important, which is kind of obvious to say, but I think especially now because she's a vice president coming out of someone's shadow. And I've read a lot of independents who are like interviewed by the Times or whatever it is saying, or who were like definitely going to vote for Trump or just didn't want to vote for Biden, and now they're open to her.
Right.
But they're only open to her. So she needs to show that she does have that vision. I think she needs to articulate some specifics and make it feel like she's that into it.
Yes.
And that's where my skepticism, that's where my few lost points on my perception comes in, is the scriptedness makes it feel like she's not super into it, like she's not necessarily living and breathing it. And I do think she believes and cares about these issues, but I think there's a little bit of discomfort fully leaning into them.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that's why I wouldn't go to a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. I think I would also give it an 8 out of 10 right now. I think her campaign rollout has been masterclass. I think it's been absolutely masterclass. Yeah. She raised the most amount of money out of any presidential candidate in a 24-hour period ever.
Yes. Yes. And a ton of that was grassroots.
Ton of it. $1.4 million small dollar donations.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
Yes.
That's a huge deal. But now the next question is Trump ready for this? Is Trump ready to take on Kamala Harris? Is he prepared for this? What do you think?
No. I mean, I get in a word, no. Because he was preparing for someone else. His lines of attack, I think, have been weak so far. He's trying to paint her as too far left, which anyone who knows anything about her before knows that she's not Bernie Sanders.
Right.
She's not Elizabeth Warren.
She actually actively ran against both of those people and criticized them from the right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't think that really works. They're talking about like she was behind Biden's whole agenda. Again, that plays to Trump's base, but I think any independents who are looking at Biden's agenda won't have a big problem with it.
Right.
I think the problem was Biden. And I'm trying to think of other attacks aren't coming to my mind.
Well, another, like, if to get into like the nitty gritty policy stuff, is it's her fault that she's the border. The border is all of her fault because she was the border czar.
Yes.
It's all her fault that crime went up because she's a soft on crime prosecutor and she wants to ban fracking in Pennsylvania. Right? Those are like the three that I see him hitting over and over and over again. And what makes me nervous is Trump has come out and he's made ads already that are attacking Kamala Harris on these issues, especially Medicare for All, which she was an advocate for in the past. And one of the points of Medicare for All is even if you're an undocumented immigrant, Medicare will cover the bill. in the Bernie Sanders legislation. Now, she's co-sponsored that at the time, and she has, again, then backed up that position. She said that no person in the United States should be denied a basic freedom. She used the word freedom back in 2019, too, as like public health, which I don't disagree with. But it's going to be a hard line to fight back against. And what makes me nervous is if the Trump campaign gets ahead of her. If he is able to define her before she is able to define herself. Because it's very hard to break someone's default assumptions about you once they've been solidified.
I think
that gets me scared.
I like that point a lot because I think part of the visible discomfort of Kamala is she is trying to see where to position herself on issues like the border, like Medicare, and what's a strength of hers is that she can say Joe Biden's accomplishments are my accomplishments.
Right.
That's really helpful, but I don't know if she's going to or if she can just say my politics are Joe Biden's politics. I think at least the two of us and anybody who's politically involved we have a pretty good pulse on Joe Biden's policy stances. Kamala, if she wants to differentiate from that, my read of her is she feels like she really needs to read the room before taking that stand. And that's why she changed her position on the Medicare.
You're right. She's reading the room right now. And now is not the time to fight for Medicare for all. It's not the season for it. What it is the season for is over the next 4 years, fight to reduce the age of eligibility for Medicare down to 55, right? Those are the fights that you can have about these types of things.
Let me ask, though, is it about whether it's time to have the fight or is it about whether it's time to campaign on it? Because I think campaigning on Medicare for all can be a pretty strong lane.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
Don't you? Like for an independent, for a young voter who might not want to turn out?
What makes me nervous is I guess the way that I would look at it is fighting back against that undocumented immigrant point. It's just going to be really, really hard right now.
Okay.
Anti-immigrant sentiment is very high.
Yes.
And I know that it's more fiscally responsible and better for humanitarian purposes to get illegal immigrants covered by Medicare. I know that.
Yes.
It's better fiscal policy to do that. Otherwise, the hospitals foot the bill and they charge insurance companies more. It's a whole thing.
Totally.
So there's a lot to it. But I think her messaging right now is on the right track. She's going down this new freedom angle, and I like it, and I think it's really nice. One thing that I think is really funny, really quick, Joe Biden, after dropping out, there are some people who made a bunch of anti-Joe Biden merch. And this one small business owner had made $10,000 worth of Biden anti-Biden merchandise. Now he's suing Biden for dropping out over in New Jersey.
That's hilarious.
Which is awesome. I think it's so good.
That is so funny.
But I want to talk about the polls. This will be the last thing here.
Yeah, good.
So Biden was losing really bad against Donald Trump. We went over a couple of state polls. And because I want to focus on the state polls more than the national ones, right? The state polls indicated that Joe Biden was running around 6 points behind the respective Senate candidate in each individual race. 6 to 8 points behind the Democratic Senate candidate.
Which is disastrous.
Disastrous. But it also meant there was opportunity to grow.
Yes.
It also meant that Democrats weren't the problem. Biden was the problem.
Yep.
And so Emerson, another company, has gone out and they've surveyed. And they have a survey from pre-Biden dropping out to now Biden's gone. And last time they took this poll, Arizona, Trump led by 7. Now Trump is up by 5. In Georgia, Trump was up by 6. Now Trump is up by 2. Michigan, Trump was up by 3. Now Trump is up by 1. Pennsylvania, Trump was up by 5. Now Trump is up by 2. Wisconsin, Trump was up by 4. Now they're tied. If you push leaners, Harris actually takes the lead in Wisconsin. And so this is showing you that Joe Biden was the problem all along.
Yep.
And if you go into all of these states, the Democratic Senate candidate is still winning by 4 to 6 points on top of these margins.
Wow.
So this is a very winnable race right now for the Democrats.
Yeah.
It is all in the margin of error. This is a 30% Harris possibility race right now.
Oh, I think it's more than that.
Okay, good.
I think
Love the confidence. Love the optimism.
Because these polls should still not be trusted as much as they are. Because I don't think the independents yet are still even maybe they're paying attention
I totally
because
understand.
this happened, but I don't think they've. So I'm a big fantasy football fan.
Yeah.
I have
Where are you going with this?
I have my draft in 2 weeks. A week ago, I started preparing. I think independents think about presidential and politics the same way.
Okay.
I honestly do. And
yeah, that's
I think we're too far out, and
That's fair.
they're like, I don't have to sit down and do my homework yet.
That's totally fair.
Right? And I think if that's why polls right now, like, we feel like we need something to talk about.
Yeah.
And I don't think these are completely unreliable or unimportant because of the directionality.
Because
to say
exactly
that,
right.
to show that the gap has closed,
Yes.
and that Harris has improved this much over Biden already is a big deal.
Yes.
Now she's going to campaign, but like I would probably have given Biden a 30% chance of winning.
Sure.
Like, even with these
Despite
terrible
all
polling
of the numbers.
Exactly.
Right. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That makes
so
sense to me.
I think Harris is at least a 50% right now.
And also, we have to think about this. This is supposed to be in the midst of the Trump convention boost. You're supposed to get bumps in the polls after your national conventions. Yeah, you're supposed to get a 1% to 2% bump.
Okay.
And so we're in the midst of the Trump convention bump. Harris's convention isn't for another week and a half. 2 weeks. So after that convention, that's when this is going to start mattering. That's when the race is going to really begin.
Okay.
That's when this is going to start heating up. That's when it's going to get interesting. The last thing I want to say.
Yeah, keep going.
I want to talk about the swing with young voters. Axios did a poll before Biden dropping out and post Biden dropping out with young voters. Joe Biden led Donald Trump 53-47 with young voters. Joe Biden, if that were to come true at the ballot box, could not win. You cannot win as a Democrat with that margin with young voters. Harris leads Trump 60-40.
Wow.
Just in a weekend.
That's wild.
All it took was getting rid of Biden.
Well, have you seen all of the reporting on her TikTok fame?
Oh, the brat summer?
Yes. And the what is it? It's K-Hive and coconut something.
Coconut pilled?
Yes, coconut pilled.
Dude, it's so funny.
And yet it's a huge deal for anyone who's between 18 and 24 years old.
No, it is a big deal.
Yeah.
I go on my For You page, and it's like, you know, these people that I follow, they're talking like, this is like the first time I've ever actually wanted to vote for a political candidate.
Yeah, exactly. Like people, just as far as turnout, for her to be cool amongst young people is huge, because while you're young, you're not yet, like, you're not in the point where you're thinking about buying a house or everything. All of the economic implications of a candidate.
You're not thinking about the solvency of Medicare over the next decade. You know what I mean?
And yet now we take on that economic anxiety, and we're like, oh, we got to figure out who's the right person here.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting stuff, guys. I think Harris has a real shot at this. I think her speeches and her message is good. I think Trump he's gonna be in a run for his money now. And the biggest state I'd keep a watch on is Georgia, man. I think she's going to make a lot of gains in Georgia very fast.
Okay, exciting.